The day after Orange and Blue today, here to talk about perspective. Cecil Lammey, Andrew Mason, and to really discuss the perspective of Bo Nix and his first start, Mace. We got a lot to get into, and we have a little bit of time before you got to go to the airport, but let's talk about Bo Nix and the proper perspective fans should have after the rookie's performance.
Well, this is obviously one example, but ask yourself this. What was the greatest week one rookie quarterback performance in NFL history? And the answer would be Marcus Mariota, week one, 2015, when he literally posted a perfect passer rating. And how did he turn out? Well, today he's backup, and he's been a backup for some time.
Yes.
You really go to extremes based on that first start. I think the best thing is to not even kind of take an assessment until after 5 games. Kind of like we took an assessment and the measure of Drew Lock after his first 5 starts there at the end of 2019. Let's get through 5 games here before we start kind of going one way or the other on Bo Nix, because what have we heard from coaches repeatedly over the last few months? He doesn't make the same mistake twice. Well, now here's the test of that, because Sean Payton's talking about, he's taking a 3-step when he should be taking a 5-step, or vice versa. Let's see if he makes those same mistakes again. If he does, that's a concern. But if he keeps learning from his mistakes as he has in practice, then this is going to be just a necessary step en route to where you want Bo Nix to go.
Did he build momentum at the end of the game? We know the struggles at the beginning of the game. He did so many unbow things, right? Throwing flat-footed over to way over Cortland Sutton, taking off to run when maybe there was guys open, not running when maybe he should have. But that last drive, when he does that 23-yard touchdown run, was he starting to build momentum? Was he starting to quote-unquote get it and just ran out of time?
A little bit, but then I would also advise this. Look how Seattle was playing coverage-wise on that drive.
Sure.
They were laying back. They played very conservative. They did what you expect to do with a 2-score lead in that scenario. So, I mean, if we're going to make a comp there to say, okay, that drive, there are some positives, but maybe it's not as big a deal as, some might hope. Well, remember, Paxton Lynch had a similar drive at the end of his first start against the Atlanta Falcons, when he, of course, came in off the bench a week earlier against Tampa Bay back in 2016. So some good things, but I would advise to not get too high off of that. If I'm looking for things that are kind of encouraging, I think he made some better decisions to run, not just on that drive, but as the game went on. I'd like to see him do that a little more. But then again, right before that last drive, he made what was probably his worst decision of the day, throwing in a triple coverage. Right. So there are some moments to be encouraged, but I'm not like, oh, wow, he's on the right track from that last drive. You have to look at the circumstances there.
Well, you were there. You were around Bo after the game. Did you ever get the sense that he seemed a little bit rattled? They showed some sideline footage of him, like on the bench doing this, like covering his face. So frustrated? Yes.
Yes.
Rattled? I don't know. What was your feel?
I'd say frustrated, but not rattled. Remember, if we're going to go back and look at his previous stop at the University of Oregon, he had a no touchdown, 2-pick, very bad day in his first start for the Ducks.
Yeah.
And within a few weeks was at cruising altitude. Again, he learns from his mistakes. That's his history, is that if he makes the mistake once, he does his level best not to repeat it. Now, you're in the NFL. It's a different set of circumstances. But I kind of view it like I often view players in baseball that have been successful at every level, low A, high A, double A, triple A. And then they struggle when they get to the major leagues at first. But there's a general sense that, okay, if you figured it out at the other levels, you're going to figure it out at this level. And so I'm still expecting Bo Nix to figure things out at this level as he has the previous levels of his football life.
Mace, I guess the thing that shocked me the most, some of the unbo-like things as we've been talking about, but also the Sean Payton game plan. this was an odd game plan, and they couldn't keep things going. And God bless, I can't remember if it was Rico or if it was Pat Shermer, but I remember asking an OC one time about like, why aren't you running more? And that we don't have enough plays. And with them going 3 and out that much, like they couldn't run more. They couldn't get Javonte into a rhythm as a runner. Jaleel not effective as a runner. But it was like the game plan from Sean Payton seemed a little bit off. And I go back to my question to Joe Lombardi of like, hey, your edges are going to be taken away. I thought Joe would at least say something about the middle of the field. He didn't. He just said, we got to play football.
Yeah.
But why was the game plan off to you?
It's interesting because I thought very early, those first couple of plays, I liked what I saw. I liked starting off in 13 personnel on that first snap when they got the ball after the Alex Singleton interception. But I want to see, maybe not 13, but I'd like to see more 12 personnel, more 21 personnel. And you got away from that and started seeing a lot of 11 personnel. I think the other thing is also, and I did mention you might see this, treating the screen game like the run game. That's well and good. But at the same time, you've got an offensive line that ought to be able to line up and do some good things, firing off the snap. And this is another thing, Cecil. I don't think the offensive line had a bad game.
Yeah.
Was it its best game? No, I don't think it had a bad game here, either run blocking or in pass pro.
So where's the issue with the running then? Because Sean Payton's talked about it a couple of times, and his best friend for a rookie quarterback. They couldn't run the ball.
3.2 yards a carry for the running backs, Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Javonte Williams as a whole. I remember Javonte had that second carry, and he slipped in the backfield. It just seemed like everything devolved from there for the running backs. And I asked him about it. Was there a footing issue? And he said, well, they put down some new turf, according to one of the Seahawks players that he talked with after the game. But, Seattle looked to be cutting pretty well for the most part. Ken Walker looked to be cutting pretty well for the most part. Sean Payton did mention the vision of the running backs today in his teleconference this morning. And and actually it was interesting when he talked about vision and seeing things. He mentioned Audric Estime and Javonte Williams specifically. So that can be a concern. I mean, as much as we like about Javonte Williams, you and I have talked about how, go back to 2021 when he was here and Melvin Gordon was here, and everyone wondered, why are you playing Melvin when you've got Javonte? Melvin had better vision than Javonte. Like, Javonte was Mr. Angry Runs breaking tackles. And this is another thing. I want to see more broken tackles from these running backs. I think they all have potential. Jaleel should be able to make somebody miss, but there was that play when he fired off to the left and got ahead of steam, and he's got to make that guy miss. And he the first contact, he kind of went down, and it was just like what we've seen in training camp, like the one critique that we have had of Jaleel in camp. Javonte, yeah, he looks like he's got more burst, but he's got to break more tackles. I think Audric Estime has that as well. One thing about Audric Estime, and Sean Payton talked a little about this today, you don't necessarily want him getting up. You don't want him off the ground. He said he doesn't want to, take that. He doesn't want to take the instinct out of a player, but he talked about the pictures that are in Audric Estime's locker. He referred to how there's a picture of Barry Sanders and a picture of Jerome Bettis, and Barry Sanders has the Ghostbusters slash through it because he's got to be more Jerome Bettis. He's got to be more the bus. The bus isn't trying to go over people; it's trying to go through people.
Right. Do you want me to play that audio of Sean Payton talking about Estime?
Yeah, let's listen to that clip. This will explain it.
Last week in Audric's locker room, there was a picture of Barry Sanders to the left and then Jerome Bettis to the right, and Barry Sanders had the Ghostbusters like circle and red line through it. And so you got to know what kind of runner you're going to be in this league. And so, I didn't see many times where Bettis was leaping over people.
You got to know what you are, right?
Yeah, and be okay with who you are. And with Audric Estime, that seemed to be maybe some missing punch With Javonte dancing, Javonte should have the no dancing thing.
Javonte should be going through people. That's his game.
Yep.
And the thing is, in 2021, when he was doing those angry runs, he took a different path to the same destination as Melvin Gordon. With Melvin, it was vision, having the whole red. With Javonte, it's the vision isn't always there, but it's being able to burst through contact. Two different routes to the same destination. Both were very productive backs back in 2021. Javonte, that's who he is when he's at his best. He's running through people. He doesn't have to necessarily see the hole, but he gets such a head of steam when it's working for him that he's able to bounce off people. And you need to see that again from Javonte Williams if this offense is going to be effective. Because look, if we see more games like we saw in this week, they won't hesitate. I don't think Sean Payton will hesitate to go down the depth chart and give Tyler Beatty a look or Blake Watson a look.
We could be looking at that if Estime can't hang onto the rock and if Javonte just doesn't produce. And with Jaleel on that carry to the left, don't you get the idea? Like if he makes that one guy miss, that's a house call.
Yes, in fact, as I'm watching it from the press box and seeing the play develop, in my mind, it's like this could go. Because you could see he's got basically had one man to beat. And if he beats him, that's 6 right there. And he couldn't. And it was like, oh, but we saw that way too often in training camp. And that's sort of the frustrating thing. I mean, is like, okay, we've seen this. And so it's also a concerning thing for him. A lot of the plays, I'll admit, he didn't have much of a chance. Like, he had 1 yard on 5 receptions. How many of those receptions is somebody right there?
Right.
Yeah. And this is where the Broncos, they're going to have to be able to run the ball better. And they're going to have a vertical stretch element to this game. Because if not, you're going to see a lot of those screens looking much like the ones you saw on Sunday, where they are targeted and covered immediately to create more space. There's got to be the vertical stretch element, which brings me to another guy, and that is you even though he may not have all the branches on the route tree, you've got to get Marvin Mims Jr. out there and involved. Because he didn't have many snaps, was targeted once. You gotta open things up a little bit and let him do what he does best. And you need a home run threat. That's the thing. Aside from that Jaleel McLaughlin play where for a moment it looked like he had that burst, there wasn't a play where you thought this thing has a chance to go, to get to the house. It was, it was like they were stuck in mud offensively.
Right.
You got to, and you got these big targets, but you need some speed. And honestly, another thing, you got to start getting Troy Franklin ready too. I mean, because he's got size, but he's got speed. And if you want size, you need to have at least one of those guys with size and a long reach who's got some speed, and that's Troy Franklin. Start getting him up to speed because this offense needs some explosiveness.
And if you don't do that, Mace, here's what happens. The book comes out of just Nix is going to throw short and you just rally and make the tackle.
Yeah.
You throw short of the sticks, you rally and make the tackle. I'll throw in one more player who didn't get a target until the fourth quarter, and that's Greg Dulcich.
Yeah.
When I asked Joe Lombardi about the edges, because you don't want to go after Seattle's corners, and I selfishly thought he would say something about the middle of the field. Don't give us the game plan. But the middle of the field was there. So Jaleel on a Texas route and Greg Dulcich on a seam, plus the Mims, at least Mims on an end around.
Yeah.
Give him a carry, something, get that speed out there. But Dulcich could have had a larger role, and they just didn't go to him until the end.
Baffling, right?
How is that the game plan?
Stuff like this, I think, is why Sean Payton a few times has said, the coaches have some culpability here.
He talked about that. That's one of the clips you sent, right? He takes responsibility. You want me to play that?
Let's hear from Sean Payton.
Here we are. The game's over. We have to ask ourselves as coaches, all right, if we played it again, what would we have done different? And there are a handful of things that I felt like I didn't do a good enough job with. relative to the inner triangle as to what we were seeing.
Inner triangle in regards to the running game, because that was an answer he was giving about the running game. But
right,
yeah, he was very reflective this morning, I thought, when he answered questions.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It's a healthy thing. But even though Seattle had that stretch where they dominated, like, you look back and like, this game was there for the taking.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, you heard all week, fast start. Hey, take the crowd out of it. Well, you had it on a silver platter. First Cooper gets the sack, then Singleton gets the pick after pressure. And you're sitting there, you're starting in the red zone, man. Like, if you get a touchdown on that first series, I think this game goes completely different. Your defense got 2 safeties in a quarter.
Yep.
Nobody's had 2 safeties in a quarter in the NFL in 13 years.
Right.
I mean, you had some astounding things going your favor early that if you had been, that offensively, if you've been able to convert there early in the game in the red zone, if you don't have, a very bad Bo Nix pass. Look, he had 2 interceptions. He could have had another couple of interceptions as well. Let's not sit here and say that Bo Nix was probably closer to a much worse rating than having a good passer rating in this game.
Yes.
If we're going to go by the numbers here. You had these opportunities and you fritter them away, and it doesn't matter who you're playing in the NFL. If you don't capitalize on those chances, you're going to pay. And then the Broncos let the Seahawks hang around, and then in the third quarter, Seattle settled down. I didn't like Seattle's game plan in the first half either. The Seahawks adjusted, and they went a little bit up tempo, but you looked at the types of runs they were doing in the third quarter to Kenneth Walker. Like, they started to play their game in the third quarter. I thought they were too cute in the first half. They played the Seahawk football that you expect offensively in the third quarter, and the Broncos just lost control of the game. And Alex Singleton, who had that interception early, he was on the wrong end of a couple of touchdowns too.
Right. And it happened because you went tempo, you did gun runs if you're Seattle, and the Broncos defense seemed gassed in the second half, and that's not what you want. And Mace, you and I have talked about, did they fix the run defense? No. I mean, not with that second half performance, and you can't just have tempo being your weakness, or else other teams, you know what Pittsburgh's going to do? They're just going to go tempo, and they're going to run you, and they're going to wear you down, and they're going to keep running at you.
And they'll run at you. If it's Justin Fields on Sunday, they'll run at you with Justin Fields as part and parcel of that too.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw what Justin Fields looked like for 3 quarters against his defense last year in Chicago in Week 4. Another example of a team of what happens if you let somebody hang around, because in that case, the Bears let the Broncos hang around. The Bears could have finished the Broncos off and didn't. And then Denver, to its credit, capitalized. That's this sport, right? That's the NFL, baby.
Yep.
Not for long. Yeah, it's not for long in terms of a window to step on somebody's throat. That window doesn't exist. It does not exist for long.
Well, and you've seen enough football to know that. And if someone makes those mistakes, like you got with Seattle, and you don't take advantage, they're not going to do that the entire game.
Nope.
So the fact that you didn't take advantage in the first half meant when they got hot in the second half, they were pulling away from you, not trying to catch up to you.
Yeah. It was hard because it was hard. It was hard to watch at times. I mean, despite all the things that went askew, this game was very winnable.
Mm-hmm.
But you look back, to me, it was lost in the first half, even though you went into halftime leading 13-9. Because of the opportunities that went squandered, this thing was lost before halftime.
Well, we'll have plenty to talk about as the week goes on. Mace, before we're out of here, how's Seattle been treating you?
Lovely.
Other than the game.
Aside from that, it's great. I had a enjoyable Saturday afternoon and evening watching some college football with our friend Chris Thomason.
Watch you get waxed.
Yeah. Oh boy, man. Buff Nation isn't happy with me.
They'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, now we got this whole kerfuffle from our friend Jake Shapiro here at DenverSports.com pointing out that they're not playing the fight song immediately after Shedeur Sanders scores a touchdown. They're playing his rap song, and then they're playing the fight song after the PAT. That fight song was good enough for 26 conference titles, 5 Orange Bowls, 3 Fiesta Bowls, 2 Cotton Bowls, and a national title. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Don't have to play. And by the way, Nebraska trolling afterwards. Did you see the videos in their locker room? They're playing Shadeur's rap song and they're singing.
Of course. You put the target on your back. That's what's going to happen, right?
You got to win. You got to win. And they're just not going to. I mean, you beat CSU, but who cares?
Yeah, well, now, I mean, if you lose to CSU, Katie bar the door. This thing's going to get out of control if they go up to Fort Fun and lose this one.
Yeah. Well, travel safe, my friend. We certainly appreciate you jumping on here before you head to the airport. But before we're out of here, we need your help on YouTube, Mace. How do they do that?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell.
So that's you
never miss a
vid.
Take care of that voice, by the way, man.
The golden pipes.
I mean, you have another 4 hours on radio tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Throat coat tea.
Tea. You need tea with honey. You need all this stuff. Some Ricola lozenges. I mean, something, man. I hope you didn't get it from me. What I was carrying around last week.
Yeah. It's whatever, right?
All right.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
He's Mace. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT's BFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.